Hi guys, I'm going to start reading chapter 18 from Fablehaven. Chapter's called Behemoth. By the time Kendra reached the barn, a pre-dawn gray dominated the eastern horizon. Her journey from the pond had been uneventful. Not a drop had spilled from the silver bowl. She went around to the little door Seth had kicked open and ducked inside. The Titanic cow stood munching hay from the loft. Every time Kendra saw Viola, she marveled anew at her enormity. The cow's udder was bloated nearly as bad as the first time they had milked her. Kendra had the tears. Now she needed milk and blood. Since the Fairy Queen had been communicating mentally, Kendra trusted her first impressions. The milk would have to be Viola's. And the blood? Her own? The cow's? Probably both to be safe. Maybe both were required. But first, the milk. Kendra set the silver bowl in a protected corner and retrieved one of the ladders. She intended to still only a few squirts. There was no time for proper milking. Kendra had never tried to collect Viola's milk. She and Seth had simply been relieving pressure for the cow and letting it spill all over the floor. There were plenty of barrels, but trying to dump a barrel into a little silver bowl seemed tricky. And considering that she would be sliding down to get milk out, it seemed like it would be hard to avoid falling in the barrel herself. She located a large pie tin, the kind Dale used to leave milk around the yard. Perfect. Small enough to dodge, but big enough to catch all the milk she would need. She positioned the tin under the teat, trying to estimate where the milk would squirt. Kendra climbed the ladder and jumped, embracing the fleshy teat. Milk gushed to the floor. Only a little splashed into the tin. She adjusted the tin, climbed the ladder, and tried again. This time was a direct hit, filling the tin almost to the brim, and she even managed to keep her feet on the landing. Kendra brought the tin over to the silver bowl. She poured milk until the bowl was 3/4 of the way full. Only blood remained. Viola mooed thunderously, apparently upset at having her milking abruptly halted right after it began. "You're going to moo much louder than that," Kendra muttered under her breath. How much blood would she need? The Fairy Queen had not specified quantities. Kendra went through the closets looking for tools. She ended up with a weed digger and another pie tin. Getting enough blood to pour from a pie tin into the bowl would be disgusting. But she was scared that if she tried to put blood from the source directly into the bowl, she would end up spilling everything. "Viola," Kendra called. "I don't know if you can understand me. I need some of your blood in order to save Fablehaven. This might sting a little, so try to be brave." The cow gave no sign of comprehension. Kendra returned to the teat she had been milking. It was the one area not protected by fur, so she figured it would be the best place to harvest some blood. She climbed the ladder, only a couple of steps. She wanted to stab the teat low so it would drip. If she had found a knife, she would have tried to make a cut. The only thing sharp about the weed digger were the points at the end, so she would have to go with a puncture wound. Up close, as she contemplated stabbing it, the pink teat looked alien. She needed to stab hard. On an animal this big, the skin would be pretty thick. She told herself it would feel just like a thorn to the enormous cow. But would she want someone jabbing a thorn into her? The cow would probably get upset. Kendra raised the weed digger, holding the pie tin in her other hand. "Sorry, Viola," she yelled, plunging the weed digger into the spongy flesh. The tool sank almost to the handle, and Viola made a terrified bellow. Poor cow. The heavy teat swung into Kendra, slamming her off the ladder. She kept hold of the weed digger and wrenching it free of the wound as she fell. The ladder clattered to the floor beside her. Viola sidestepped and tossed her head, bellowing again. The barn shook, and Kendra heard timber splitting. The roof shuddered. The walls swayed and cracked. Kendra covered her head. Gigantic hoofs thumped against the floor, and Viola let out a long, plaintive moo. Then the cow settled down. Kendra looked up. Dust and hay floated down from above. Blood trickled down the teat, already dripping from the tip. Since Viola had calmed down and the blood was flowing freely, Kendra cast aside the pie tin and retrieved the silver bowl. Standing under the teat, she started catching drops of blood. She had toured a cave with her family once, and the sight reminded her of water dripping from a stalactite. Soon the mixture in the bowl turned from white to pink. The flow of blood slowed. The lower side and tip of the teat was stained red. Kendra supposed it was enough. She went and sat by the little door. Now for her blood. Maybe she could just try the cow blood and see if that worked. No, haste was essential. How would she get blood out? No way was she using the weed digger unless she could sterilize it. Leaving the bowl, she hunted through the closet again. She noticed a safety pin on a collar on a pair of overalls. She unpinned it and ran back to the bowl. Holding her hand over the bowl, she hesitated. Kendra had always hated needles. The idea of being fully aware that something was about to hurt, but having to endure it calmly. But today was not a day to be squeamish. Gritting her teeth, she stuck her thumb with the pin and then squeezed 2 drops of blood into the mixture. That would have to do. Kendra looked at the pie tin. She should probably drink some milk herself, since a new day was beginning. She took a sip. Then she realized that her family would need milk as well when she found them. There had been bottled water in one of the closets. Kendra hurried to the closet, selected a bottle, unscrewed the cap, dumped the contents, and filled it with milk from the pie tin. The bottle barely fit in her pocket. Kendra retrieved the small silver bowl. Swirling the solution a bit, she exited the barn. Pre-dawn colors streaked the horizon. Sunrise was approaching. Now what? There were no fairies in sight. When the Fairy Queen had given instructions, Kendra had felt no doubt that the handmaidens she referred to were the fairies. She was supposed to make a potion for them that would somehow get them to help her. What would it do? Kendra realized that she had no idea. What could it do? Win their affection? Then what? Lacking other options, she had to trust the reassurance she had felt when the Fairy Queen spoke to her mind. First, she needed to find fairies. She wandered the garden. There was one, clad in orange and black with matching butterfly wings. "Hey, fairy, I have something for you," she cried. The fairy darted over to her, looked at the bowl, started chirping in a squeaky voice, and zoomed away. Kendra roamed until she found another fairy and ended up with an identical reaction. The fairy acted excited and then flew away. Soon, multiple fairies were flying up to Kendra, peeking in the bowl, and then soaring off. They were apparently spreading the news. Kendra ended up beside the metal statue of Dale. She set the bowl on the ground and backed away, in case her proximity might discourage the fairies. The morning grew brighter. Before long, dozens of fairies hovered around the bowl. They were no longer showing up only to zip away. A crowd was forming. Occasionally, one would fly right up to the bowl and peer inside. One even laid a tiny hand on the rim, but none took a drink. Most stayed several feet away. The crowd swelled to more than 100. Still, they would not drink. Kendra tried to be patient. She did not want to frighten them away. Suddenly, the sound of a mighty wind interrupted the quiet morning. Kendra felt no breeze, but she could hear a shrieking gale in the distance. As the sound of the wind tapered off, a ferocious roar echoed across the yard. The fairies scattered. It could mean only one thing. "Wait, please, you have to drink this. Your queen had me make it for you." The fairies darted around in confusion. "Hurry, time is running out." Whether it was her words or simply that they were no longer startled, the fairies gathered around the bowl again. "Try it," Kendra said. "Have a taste." None of the fairies took her up on her offer. Kendra dipped a finger into the bowl and sampled the elixir. She tried not to make a disgusted face. It tasted salty and nasty. Delicious. A fairy with raven black hair and bumblebee wings approached the bowl. Mimicking Kendra, she dipped a finger and tasted it. In a whirling shower of sparks, the fairy grew to nearly 6 feet tall. Kendra smelled the fertile aroma that had accompanied the Fairy Queen. The enlarged fairy blinked in astonishment, then glided high into the air. The other fairies mobbed the bowl. A blizzard of sparks flashed across the yard as the fairies transformed into much larger versions of themselves. Kendra backed away, shielding her eyes from the dazzling pyrotechnics. In moments, she was surrounded by a glorious host of human-sized fairies some standing on the ground, most hovering.